Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining today's episode of the Nature's Calls podcast. As always, I'm your host, Nature Erdman, here to talk a little bit of Chargers football with you, specifically my projections for the 53-man roster as we go into OTAs. Now, I know OTAs have been going for a couple of days now. I made this spreadsheet about 5 days ago, tried to record 2 days ago, had a bunch of video issues. So we're going to try again tonight. Not a whole lot has happened in OTAs to really sway my opinion on any of this, but let's just pretend it's 5 days ago and go through this. So, got a nice little spreadsheet for you that I made. So, it kind of breaks down by position the four different categories that I have now. So, I have, or five different categories, my apologies. So, blue category is going to be surefire locks to make the roster. No questions asked. All these guys, they're going to be on the roster. Now, green, same thing, but with some kind of asterisk. And as we go through, I'll kind of talk about why I have an asterisk next to them. Yellow is going to be roster bubble yes, and orange is going to be roster bubble no. Now, those are very close. Those are really the camp battles, in my opinion. And then the red lines are going to be it's a no. I'm sorry, gotta field the best team out here. So don't get me wrong. Pretty much all of the UDFAs I have red lines on. We know this team. One or two is gonna make the roster. I feel like they always do. So I'm not in those special teams rooms, but I'll kind of cross those bridges as I get there. So I kind of want to walk you through position by position how I have everybody tagged out. You guys can let me know what you think, and we'll just kind of run it through. Now, I do have each section organized in somewhat of a depth chart way. Um, I'll kind of talk about that as we go. It was more important for me to have the colors organized, so it made a little bit more sense to read. But we'll kind of touch on some of the finer tuning aspects of things as we go. So, this is my projection. Let's talk through it. Um, so Justin Herbert, I think he's going to make the roster. I got this weird inkling. I think he's going to be QB1. Taylor Heineke. I'm just kidding. No questions asked here. So let's get down to Taylor Heineke and my green roster lock with an asterisk. I think the money attached to him says that he's going to make the team. I thought that before that first video came out, Trey Lance could reasonably push a little bit just because I think his play style with his ability to run the football a little bit could be of value to Greg Roman as an offensive coordinator, as well as his age, just wanting to keep him on the roster that way. However, all signs point to Heineke. I can't imagine them cutting him. I think he's played well as a backup. I think he's a serious upgrade over what we had in the last couple of years with Easton Stick, and I just don't think he's NFL ready. Plain and simple. Sorry to say it, Trey. You might be a draft bust, buddy. About 5, 6 years in now. I think it's time to put the nail in the coffin. DJ Ugalele, the son of a gun who took number 13 from us. Sorry, big dog. I don't even know why you're here. Let's go on offensive tackles where it really starts to matter here. So this was a weird one to project. I've only got two. We'll go to guards in a second, and that's where I think your depth is. I think it's players that I have listed as guards on my sheet right now. But Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt are obviously Pro Bowl caliber, all pro caliber players. Tyler McClellan, Corey Stewart, Savion Williams. Washington. I don't see it. I don't see it. And we'll talk about why in a second because I have all five offensive guards making it. So I have, with two centers, nine total offensive linemen. I don't think we're going to carry more than that. I think it's the only thing that makes sense. So let's look at the guards and exactly how I kind of see this projecting out. So Mekhi Becton, Zion Johnson, and Trey Pipkins, they're going to make the roster. Trey Pipkins, I think, is going to be our swing tackle. Now, Jamari Salyer could end up playing some part in all of that. We know how well he played in his rookie season, but Trey Pipkins, the contract, the way that they performed or handled the situation last year when injuries happened, I think it's the only thing that makes sense. I think he's going to be your swing tackle. I could see him rotating in at some guard in there based off his performance last year. I think he's exclusively going to be a rotational bench player at this point. That's the way that I see it. But I think they have him listed as a guard right now, so I have him listed as a guard right now. I don't see any other way that that breaks down. I do have a green mark on Jamari Salyer as a roster lock with an asterisk. And the reason I have that is purely because do we have depth at the position? Do we have anybody better than Jamari? I think Jamari's regressed a lot since his rookie year, whether that's based off of opportunity or moving into a different position because he had to fill in a left tackle. Maybe that's his natural position and he's an excellent backup left tackle. Um, I'm not exactly sure. He definitely has performed worse at guard, in my opinion. Um, but we just don't have depth of talent at the position. And I think he's shown his flexibility that I think he's going to make it. But what the reason he's green is just because I don't think that his coaching staff really has any loyalty to him like Chargers fans do. I think it just clearly comes down to a talent thing. And then Branson Taylor, I do have a roster bubble, yes. Again, it purely just comes down to the talent that we have. I think he's better than McClellan, Stewart, and Washington. Now we could that could be revealed in OTAs to not be true. I do not do not see him playing tackle. I don't. I'm sorry. There's no reason to be sorry. I think we brought him in to be a guard, and hopefully he is a guard, and that's where we need improvement. Maybe he's an absolute breakout candidate. I mean, Jordan Mailata was, I think, a seventh round pick. So it happens. It's very rare, but it happens. So I think that Branson Taylor's that other guy. And then we roll down to center. We'll just finish offensive line real quick. Bozeman and Andre James make the team. I don't think there's any reason to carry a third center. I don't think there really ever is. But especially in this situation, Zion Johnson, I think, is going to be in the rotation to some extent. I think they trust him at center more than they trust a lot of these other guys around him. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we see one of those centers slide over to a guard position and Zion ends up playing center. I'd be okay with it. It doesn't hurt my feelings. Okay, I would not be okay with Bradley Bozeman or Andre James playing guard, but Zion Johnson playing center, if that's an upgrade for us, all day long. Now, again, I've mentioned this a couple times. This is still a room that I would like to upgrade because it's one of the weakest rooms of depth that I feel like we have in the league. I don't, or in the on the team. I don't think that there's really any teams in the league that have a tremendous amount of depth at offensive line. It's very rare when teams do. Um, it's just there's so few excellent, very strong offensive linemen at any position in the NFL. The top versus the middle is a Grand Canyon of space. It's not like wide receiver where the 50th best wide receiver isn't that far behind the 10th best wide receiver realistically. And far as what they can do, it comes down to more of position and fit and things like that, and how good the room is around you, how good the offense is overall. Offensive lineman, straight up, if you're the 10th and you're the 50th best offensive lineman, there is a night and day difference. Night and day difference. And so I don't, it's not a position you can just go pick some people off the street and fill some depth. But there's a couple guys still out there that I would love to bring into this room to add some additional competition. Um, Fullback, uh, Scott Matlock. I have making it. And sorry if I keep looking left. I have to look at the spreadsheet too while I talk to you guys. Sorry, but Scott Matlock I think is who's going to make the fullback position. I know there's a lot of hype around Steve Klotz. I think it just comes down to positional versatility, especially because his positional versatility is at defensive tackle for Scott Matlock, a position that we don't necessarily have a tremendous amount of high end depth at. I know we put a lot of money into it this year. We'll get to that in a second. Um, but I feel like they've just coaching staff and this team has invested so much into him. The way that he played down the stretch in the second half of the season was he performed well as a fullback in the second half of the season. Like it was an experiment. And it was a little bit of a joke, but then he turned around. Like he played well, and so I have a hard time seeing Steve Klotz surpassing that enough during OTAs to really take that over. Um, Pataya's on there too. That's no. Let's look at the running backs. This is where it starts to get really funny here. And really, where the yellow players from here on out essentially are all about special teams. So we'll talk about that as we go and really wrap it up at the end. But so running back, I only have two surefire locks, and that's Najee and Amarian. Like it's those are our two guys. Those are the guys that I expect to carry 95% of the balls, 90%, barring injury. So I think Najee's going to start the season as the RB1. I think he's going to do a heck of a job. He's really my breakout offensive candidate for the year. I would not be surprised if he performs as well as JK last year in a completely different manner. He's not going to be explosive. He's not going to take over that side of things, but he's going to be consistent as hell. And I think 4 yards per carry in our offense with Justin Herbert and everything else is going to turn into 5 yards per carry. And I'm not saying he's going to average 5 yards per carry, but you're going to see a lot more effectivity out of his running game. Um, I I think he's going to hold on to that job a lot longer than people think he does. Omarion Hampton's going to continue to work in more and more and get more of that explosiveness. But I think Najee's going to have such a strong hold on this that it's going to turn into a true timeshare down the road. Um, but it's going to start off the season with Najee carrying the load here and letting Omarion get his feet wet. Now, obviously, Hampton's going to play like he's a first round pick. And I wouldn't be surprised if he starts the season super strong, if he's just that incredible of a player. I'd love to see it. But that's still the way that I see it playing out is that Najee's going to play well enough that Omarion Hampton's going to have to take his job from him. It will not fall to him. So, next two guys, I do have Rocket Sanders and Hassan Haskins. And so Rocket Sanders has a lot to do with who else is in the room not making the team, but also the way that they talk about him, the way that we've heard about him skipping drills, the way that Ortiz talked about him being a draftable player to them. I think he would have gone quite a bit earlier to the Chargers in the draft had they not taken Omari and Hampton in the first round, had that situation played out differently and we didn't get any of the guys we wanted in the earlier rounds. I think Rocket Sanders probably would have been like a fifth, sixth round pick for us. So the way that they talk about him. And so I think that he's got the size, the speed, and everything that we want in this team. He's plug and play as far as stylistic play. The way that he plays the game fits really well with Amarian and Najee. And so I see him making the roster. Hassan Haskins, I also do. And this was really hard for me because I'm such a Kamani Vidal fan. But and we'll get to him in just a second. But the way that Hassan Haskins plays on special teams, I think, is a difference maker. Um, and there's not a tremendous amount that Kamani Vidal can do that none of the other guys on the team can do. Like Najee can catch passes. Omarion can be explosive out of the backfield. We have Greg Roman. He's not throwing it that much anyway. And really, Hassan Haskins can do something no one else can do. Like Najee can push the pile, but Hassan Haskins proved to this coaching staff that he can be effective at that last year. And not only that, he's an incredible special teams contributor. And I see that making the roster. Kamani Vidal, I love the way he plays. I think he's an excellent rotational back in this league, a Kenneth Gainwell type. I thought that he could grow into that role and fairly quickly. But my biggest thing with him was he was an incredible pass protector in college. Now, Troy and Troy's competition and college size players and everything else. I get it. I expected learning curves, but I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, in his last year in NC2A, he was like a top three ranked running back in pass protection grades, um, and he was horrendous last year, terrible in pass protection. So I have a really he may have turned a corner, put on some more size, everything else, but um, I like him. I just have a really hard time seeing him make the amount of improvement that he needed to do to make this team with the room that we have now. This is without JK sticking around. Oh my God, could you imagine? There's no way. Um, yeah, it's going to be a really fun running back room to watch. Wide receiver. Wide receiver, we've got big four making the roster no matter what. Ladd, Trey, Quentin, Mike. Does anybody have any questions? They're all making the roster. Keandre Lambert Smith making the roster. The reason I have him marked green is because I expect him to be used extremely sparingly. And the reason I kind of highlight that specifically is because I think even if there were injuries to the wide receiver room, um, that you'd see someone else get called up or signed and start getting more playing time. Now, KLS will probably get a little more playing time in that situation, but I don't think he becomes a focal point of the offense. I don't think that that's what they have intentions for him in year one. I think they see him working his way in and having certain play calls and everything designed for him, especially if the roster thins out a little bit on that side of things. But I really just don't see him being a focal point in this offense. And the reason I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, just he's a player I'd temper expectations on for year one, in our usage of him. Now that does play into Darius Davis because I have him as yellow because if someone else can take over that special, like let's say Rocket Sanders is an excellent kick returner, I would not be surprised if DD doesn't make the roster. And I hate to say it because I like him. I like him a lot. And I think he's going to make the roster, but I just wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't, if someone else can kind of fill the space that he has because the on field side of things, um, deep shots and jet sweeps and things like that, like we like to use Quentin for the jet sweeps. And especially with Quentin's role this year, I think it might be a little bit different. I would love to see some more speed usage out of Darius Davis, but I think those are the specific plays, and I don't know how many you have last year, probably like 20-ish, where he's stretching the field downfield trying to get a target out there. I think those are the KLS plays. I think that's where he comes into play. I don't think that I think Darius Davis, as much as we'd like to see more of him on offense, if anything, I think he might go the other direction this year. Um, so I hate to say it, but he is on the bubble. I don't have Jalen Rieger, Brendan Rice, Luke Grimm, any of them making the roster in this situation, but again, they're all orange because any of them could end up turning like if like I said, Raheem Sanders takes the kickoff returns, or one of the other guys in the secondary or something like that takes the kickoff returns. Why are you keeping Darius Davis over one of the other guys if they show improvement? Can Luke Grin take kickoff returns? Is that something that he could possibly do? Jalen Rager, I won't. I'd be so upset if we did. But like any of those guys, based off of their skill sets and contributions in other parts of the field besides the offense, could absolutely end up with this role. Now, I do think the number is six. I don't think we carry seven wide receivers again. I think the number is six this year. And then we knock on the tight ends. Um, all four of them. We use them. We're going to use them. If we want to run the ball as effectively as they keep talking about, I think we end up with four tight ends. Part of the reason I only had six wide receivers. And so Conklin and Disley, surefire locks. That's, you're making it. Conklin's going to be your primary pass catching guy. What they expected Hurst to be last year. Disley's going to be getting some passes, predominantly a blocking tight end. Sorry. 12 personnel, both of them on the field. That's how I see it playing out. Now, I have Aronde Gadsden and Tucker Fisk as green and yellow. Aronde, he's going to make the roster. The reason I have him marked green here is because he's going to make the roster based off of draft capital, very similar to KLS in the way I kind of talked about this year. I think you're going to have some packages for him. Something happens to Conklin, I see him playing quite a bit more. Um, but I have Tucker Fisk behind him as yellow. I have him as a roster bubble, yes. I think he makes the team, but again, it comes down to special team contributions. But I would be amazed if this team let him walk because if something happened to Will Disley, I don't see them trusting Tyler Conklin and Rondé Gadsden to fulfill the role that they need in that offense. And so I think that's where Tucker Fisk gets playing time. And honestly, the reason I have Rondé Gadsden marked as green there is because I think Tucker Fisk plays more snaps than Rondé anyway. The only reason I have him ranked this way is because there is some turn of events where Tucker Fisk doesn't make the team. I think a very slim chance. There's no chance that Aronde Gadsden doesn't. So yeah, that's my 26 offensive players. I believe that last year we were a 25-25-3 split right down the middle. This year I have us as a 26-24 split, so a little bit more on offense this year, but I don't see it working out too much of a different way. And like I said, even if DD doesn't make the team, one of those other three, like we're going to carry six wide receivers, carry five, I'd be very surprised. Um, I don't see a cut in here. Cutting a Hassan Haskins and going three running backs, I don't see it. Any less than nine offensive line, I don't see it. So that's how it shook out for me. So let's take a look at the defense because this is where it gets fun. The interior defensive line, I've got Tart, Caldwell, Aboigby, and Hand making the team. Surefire locks. Um, After a Boyd B is where it got weird. So Deshaun Hand was almost a green for me. I decided to keep him as a blue. And then you get into a couple other guys that are all coin flips for me. But when I look back at Deshaun Hand and how we paid him and what his contributions and everything were on his previous teams, I think that he's going to be the one who's heavier in rotation to me. Um, I following the money specifically. I have a hard time thinking that he doesn't make this team. You'd have to These other guys would have to really impress and he would have to really disappoint for that to be the case, and I just don't see it happening. So those are my big four for the defensive line rotation. I do have Naquan Jones in there. Watching the interviews, watching the way that he was recruited from Tart, looking at how much money he was paid, I have a hard time seeing him not making the roster as well. Which this is where it gets hairy. Starts the interior defensive line cuts at Tito Ogbonia. So this was probably the hardest cut for me. And I looked pretty heavily at his numbers from last year because I knew that he was disappointing. I didn't realize how disappointing he was. So I quantified it using numbers. Now, obviously, I don't always trust PFF grades and stats and things like that. But I don't see us carrying more than five. I don't see us carrying a sixth interior defensive lineman. They don't carry special teams value as much. I think five is enough to have a healthy rotation. I could even see him getting away with four, but talk about the physicality and everything in this team. And also just I don't think we cut Chris Hinton, Ogbonia, and Naquan Jones. Um, that brings me to Chris Hinton. He's a player that I could just see taking another step, taking another leap, finding playing time, but I don't expect it. Tara Edwards, sorry, bud. Um, Finish out the defensive line with edge room. I think we carry a rotation of four, a primary rotation of four, and I think it's pretty obvious who those people are. It's Khalil Mack, Thule, Bud Debris, and Kyle Kennard. Um, I don't see I don't see us carrying five, and I don't see us cutting Kyle Kennard, obviously with his draft capital and the hype surrounding him and everything else. That kind of determines it for me. Like you know who your starting two are. Now I think there is some world where Bud Dupree regresses. Um, Tremon Morris Brash ends up making the team. I don't see it as likely because I don't see us carrying five guys on the offensive line. Now, unless I really feel like Ryan Ficken has a use for him on the special team side of things, that's the only way I see that happening. Chris Collins, Caleb Murphy not making it, but Tremont Morris Brash could has somewhat of a fighting chance, but I still do have him as a cut. Linebackers, again, same thing. Big four. These four are the most locked in players in the position. So Henley, Colson, Perryman, Dye's going to make it. There's no questions asked. The contract that we gave him was indicative of what he's capable of doing on special teams and how well he played for us on defense when that time came. Um, he's our new Nick Neiman, but he has better defensive rotation capabilities. I do have Delshon Phillips listed in there as well. Just looking at his grades, looking at his tape, I think that he has value to this team. How many snaps he plays on defense, I don't know. I think he'd be solid in special teams coverage as well. Malgun, Jeremy, John Baptiste, I think he's actually already cut, but your bud. Cornerback, I didn't realize it's already been 20 minutes. Let's wrap this up. Cornerback room. Cam Hart, Dontre Jackson, Tarheeb still. Three surefire locks. Um, that's an excellent rotation when everybody's healthy. Okay. That's a really good rotation when everybody's healthy. If Dante Jackson can be better because Jesse Minter is amazing, we're good. Cam Hart is a stud, I think. Just needs to stop getting concussions. Tarheeb still, everybody knows he's a stud. That's everybody's boy right now. Ben St. Just I have marked as green. I don't think that I have an actual reason to have him marked as green. I just hate Ben St. Just as a player. If you're watching this, I like you. Welcome to the Chargers. But he was so bad. Now, Jesse Minter could fix him to some extent. Um, as long as he stays our CB4 or a rotational player, I'm fine. I would love to fill up this room a little bit more. This to me is the weakest link. Offensive line and this are the weakest position groups of the Chargers. I don't like our cornerback room. I don't feel comfortable with it. Am I saying go trade for a Jalen Ramsey? No, not necessarily. But it gives me an extreme amount of concern towards the end of the season playoff contention time. Dean Leonard and Josser Taylor, both excellent special teams player. Jaw can play nickel, and he's shown that in game he can play competently in the nickel position to be a rotational player. Dean Leonard can play a little bit inside outside. He's better outside. Um, I think both of them I listed as making the team because of special teams. I don't think that this team is attached to Jaw the same way that the previous regime was. If Triquez Bridges really balls out or one of these other guys really balls out, I could see us carrying one less corner, but that brings us down to five corners. Carrying less than six would be surprising, but not necessarily unsurmountable. I would like to add to this room and cut one of those guys. Sorry to say it. Safety, similar situation. Derwin Alohi, Elijah, RJ Mickens isn't getting cut. Let's make this clear. Those three safeties are excellent. That is an excellent safety rotation. Alohi Gilman's, I really like Elijah Molden. I really like the way he played last year. Alohi Gilman's a great player, and he deserves his contract. If RJ Mickens balls out, I could see us trading Alohi. I don't want to, though. I think his knack for finding the ball is something that you can't teach. You can't support all four safeties if RJ Mickens is actually legit. Um, I think he makes the most sense if something were to happen to Derwin to replace that kind of role because Elijah and Alohi, that's not their game. So I think I'm making that position. Tony Jefferson, I have as a cut. I'm so sorry, Unc. I don't. If we cut RJ Mickens, he's going to get scooped up immediately. Tony, I think, only really wants to play for the San Diego Chargers because he's a San Diego boy. I think he finds his way onto this roster at some point. Monty Johnson, I know he's made some plays. Kendall Williamson, I know he's or Jalen Jones, I know he's made some plays in OTAs so far. He'd have to really show up. He'd have to really show up in special teams and take somebody else's spot because this roster is getting tight, getting real tight. And then you have special teams. Big three: Dicker, Scott, and Harris. None of them are going anywhere. Let's not even talk about it. But those last three spots were difficult. Really, the whole defensive roster bubble guys were all really difficult for me. Um, Naquan Jones in there had to follow the money. We need the interior defensive line depth because we don't know how strong that rotation is going to be. So I think they move bodies in and out and find the best crew to put out there. Dean Leonard and Josser Taylor, those were kind of, is this regime attached to them or are they just kind of still here? They're both excellent special teams players. Ficken's been here throughout the regime change, so it's hard to say for sure. Delshon Phillips was my go back and forth between Utito and him, but I felt like the linebacker position went more to special teams. Same thing. RJ Mickens, we already talked about his special team acumen, so and my expectations for him. So I mean, it could go a lot of different directions. We could see a lot of change between now and then. But I think this is about 95% what I would expect. I think there's a couple spots up for grabs, and they're all listed in yellow and orange. This team is deep, though. Okay, and that's been my biggest complaint about the Chargers offseason is that um, from a contention level, we don't have a tremendous amount of blue. That would be a fun video. I'll do that next. We'll do a blue chip player video, starting caliber player type of thing, because I feel like at the top end of our roster, we're not extremely high end talented. Like you look through our team, we don't have a bunch of stars. We have a few blue chip players sprinkled throughout, but if you go 3, 4 deep at every position, I don't remember a Chargers team since 2008 that was this deep. Like we are insulated for injuries. The question comes down to when they're at their best, can we beat them? The top teams in the league, when they are at their best, do we have enough talent to beat them with this current roster? Now, if all of our draft picks hit, yes, we do. If them hit, As long as Justin Herbert's protected and the offensive line is fixed and that whole project actually works, I think we can go toe to toe with anybody. I think we have the weapons to support it now. We just have to hope that they don't suck, because it's not the first time we've tried to draft a player to fix our offense and it didn't exactly go according to plan, if you know what I mean. But a little bit of growth from one existing wide receiver on our roster. I think he's pretty sure he's a first round pick at 22. Um, I think that we get that. I think Trey Harris is I feel very confident in being stud. You get some level of deep threat ability from KLS. The tight end room has some mild improvement. I think we got a good shot, but you get to November, teams are worn down. Everybody's playing a little bit hurt. You look at the depth of this roster. I think that's where we make a difference. So appreciate you tuning in. Let me know who you think is your absolutely agree with. Of course, they're going to make the roster, or you think I'm an absolute idiot. Please let me know. Comment, tag me, the whole 9 yards. Let's do this thing. So, thanks for tuning in. A little bit longer video today, but go Bolts. Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please give me a follow on Twitter or X at Erdman Chargers. Or if you're not already there, go ahead and hop over to my YouTube channel, like or subscribe at Nature's Calls Pod. Thanks for listening.